Hey guys, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn 101. This episode, going to be talking about the end game. Now, a lot of people have been saying, alright, everything looks all good and dandy, but a big problem, and even Yoshi P has admitted this, is that most MMOs tend to have a problem with providing end game content. Now, sure, leveling is supposed to be fun. There's supposed to be plenty to do while leveling, but if there's not enough to do after you've leveled, your long-time subscriptions just won't be there. So what is Yoshi P planning in terms of endgame? Well, if it's if 1.0 is anything to go by, there'll be more than that, which is nothing. Yoshi P actually has a plethora of endgame events, which he claims will cater to both casual and hardcore. Some of them catering to the casual player, and some of them catering to the hardcore player. So let's jump right into that. The first thing that he's mentioned are fates. Fates are going to be large-scale battles. They already exist at the lower levels. However, the higher scale battles, he has said he will include fights with the legendary Behemoth and the God of War Odin. Those are both staples of Final Fantasy, and he says that these will require a great deal of coordination to pull off. In other words, if you're just out there soloing it, like if there's like a free company doing it and you're just kind of soloing, if your personal responsibility is good enough to stay alive, you'll be all right. But expect to try and party up for these kind of fates, because not having a healer, just not a good idea as a whole in this. Doing it alone, maybe if you're a white mage doing it alone, you'll be all right. But other than that, be kind of rough. The next thing is level 50 dungeons. Now, he has gone into two different, I guess, modes of talking about level 50 dungeons. He's talked about hard mode dungeons and just regular level 50 dungeons. Hard mode dungeons are going to be level 50 versions of the low level dungeons. Now, I know a lot of people are thinking, oh, I hate heroics. I hate them so much. These aren't the same as heroics. The reason being they are different layouts and bosses. It is not simply the same like level 10, like obviously not level 10, level 15 dungeon with level 50 monsters in it now. It is literally a different layout, a different part of the dungeon as a whole, and the bosses will be different. This will be probably considered entry level stuff, obviously, to be expected. And on top of that, there will also be 8-man raid dungeons. Now, these are dungeons that are already designed for level 50s and will be making an appearance in the game. We don't know if these will have hard modes yet that will kind of exceed past their difficulty levels, but these include the Ormvale, the Zemiel Darkhold, and Cutter's Cry. These were level 50 dungeons in 1.0. They were 8-man dungeons, and they were moderately difficult first time through, but we don't know what they've changed in them since then. And now that the Darklight set has been broken up, which is a very, very coveted level 50 set of gear, it's been broken up into 9 different sets. You can be sure that people will be farming these for a pretty long time before they jump into the higher level content. So alongside of these 8-man raid dungeons, we also have the Primals. Now, in 1.0 we had 3 Primals. We had Ifrit Hard, Garuda, and then the Moogle. And then for the Relic quest, you also had Ifrit Extreme, which was considered which was the second to last penultimate fight. The only fight following that would be the White Raven fight, which won't exist in 2.0. However, we have also seen that they will be adding a Titan fight, and we have reason to believe that they will add a Rama fight at launch. Now, they've also showed us plans for Shiva and Fenrir, as well as Leviathan, so expect those to come not too long after the initial patch. Those, for the most part, will grant weapons with different effects, and the weapons there are extremely, extremely powerful. Felled only by the next set of content, the Relic Weapon quest. The Relic Weapon quest is a long quest line that will eventually give you an item level 95 weapon. The weapons vary depending on what job you're getting them for, and you can only ever pursue one of your Relic weapons at a time. It'll probably require you to go through a lot of the 8-man raids, as well as Garuda and Ifrit Extreme, so you can expect to have to do a lot of content in a more difficult manner in order to obtain your Relic weapon. Since there will be 9 Relic weapons, expect for there to be a lot of things to do in terms of this, because that quest does take you through a lot of different fights. Also, for those of you wondering, the Paladin Weapon is both a sword and a shield. It is both in one, so don't have to worry about doing it twice if you're a Paladin. Next, you have the big raids. Now, this is where things get kind of a little bit more exciting. You have the Crystal Tower. Now, those of you who played Final Fantasy III know about the Crystal Tower. It's where the Cloud of Darkness chills, basically. And it's back in Final Fantasy XIV. It is going to be a multi-tiered raid, which will unlock as further patches progress. In other words, this initial patch, we're going to be seeing some bosses. We're going to see a 1 tier of the Crystal Tower. We'll have to raid through it. We'll see if we can beat it. And then we'll wait for the next one. But they're not just like, all right, one 24-man raid and we're done. They're like, no, no, no. No one wants to do that. That's not fun. You can't just only have one raid. Even Blizzard knows that whenever they do an expansion, they have more than one raid at the start. So they included the Great Labyrinth of Bahamut. The Great Labyrinth of Bahamut is at some point going to be the penultimate fight with Bahamut. But obviously in patch 1, it's going to work very similarly to the way that the Crystal Tower works, and that it will be sectioned off as further patches progress, but it is a tier higher than the Crystal Tower. Not only that, but some interesting details about the Great Labyrinth of Bahamut. It is stated that there are entrances to the Great Labyrinth all over Eorzea, and that more of them will open up as patches come by. It is also noted that you can end up entering in one place and ending up in a place that you were in a previous patch. So this means that it's going to be a maze as well as a boss fight. So it's not going to be a completely linear dungeon, which is going to be good. Not completely linear raid, I should say. These will both be 24-man raids, so make sure you have a lot of friends that can come with you, and be prepared because, as we've seen in the past, Square Enix knows how to make a challenge out of things, so hopefully some of those developers are still working on content along those lines. Finally, those are all the PvE funds and perks that we get to talk about for the time being. Let's talk about PvP. PvP Phase 4 and release, we're going to have the Colosseum. The Colosseum is essentially a 4v4 and an 8v8 battle arena. I don't take this for fact, I don't believe it's going to have any objective control. I believe it is going to be your simple PvP. It is just a place for people to go and kill each other, basically. I've also not heard of any sort of grand company sectioning off for this, but when we get into future PvP, grand companies will be a big deal. And finally, you have housing. The reason why I say housing is because pimping out your free company house is always fun. I consider that endgame. Sure, why not? Now, that's the content that we can expect to come out at launch. Now, there's also other content that we're going to be expecting shortly after launch, and they've been fairly honest with this about how they're planning it and how they're sectioning it off. And some of these things are a bit ambiguous, but we'll get into that. The first thing I want to talk about is Frontline Pvp. Because we talk so much about what the PvE is, I'll jump right into PvP for future content first. The Frontline PvP is going to be a PvP zone where different grand companies will face off in objective control and your regular PvP. I most closely relate this to World versus World of Guild Wars, and so does Yoshi. Yoshi does admit that it is very heavily inspired by the World versus World content in Guild Wars 2, but that it will be Grand Company versus Grand Company versus Grand Company. So while Grand Companies may not influence you too much with their gear, it may influence you to know who's going to be on top. Personally, I think Ulda is going to be taking a large portion of the wins, at least on the legacy servers, not on the new servers. Next, you have the Gilgamesh Story Arc. Now, Gilgamesh is, if you've played Final Fantasy, he is a staple. He has been the same character across all of the Final Fantasies. He is the same guy, pretty much. And even on all the different forms he's taken on, there's one thing that he pretty much has brought with us, and that's his 4 signature weapons, one of them being useless and one of them being one of the penultimate weapons in Final Fantasy, capable of instantly KOing most enemies. His story arc is going to have multiple phases in his fights, so you can expect his fights to get progressively harder. Next, we have the very, 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 very controversial Lightning story arc. If you're wondering, please don't tell me he just said Lightning from Final Fantasy XIII. The answer is yes. Lightning from Final Fantasy XIII will eventually make an endgame appearance in, well, Final Fantasy XIV. This is in response to Final Fantasy XIV, a Final Fantasy XIV costume being available in Lightning Returns. Now, they have said that her story arc means the following things. She will have a rightful place here. She will not just show up for no reason. She is here for a reason. She will be with Snow Villiers, and we will be able to obtain her costumes. They have also said it does not mean they will just randomly throw other Final Fantasy characters in here. Most notably, Sephiroth was the first one that they said. First question was, what about Sephiroth? Does that mean we got to fight with him? And they said, this doesn't mean you're just going to get to fight whoever you want. There has to be a reason why these characters are in this world. So that was a bit reassuring that we're not just going to see Sephiroth fights all over the place, because that's worrisome. But it is good to note that because of the Final Fantasy series being the theme, a lot of names like Cloud Strife and Sephiroth and whatever, all those names are essentially not allowed to be used. So we'll see what happens. And it also brings up a little bit of wonder, because what about the Skirmish Fights? Now, those of you who don't know about Skirmish Fights are going to be fights against classic Final Fantasy enemies, they've said. They've tried to avoid saying villains, I guess for that same reason. And we've kind of already seen some of the old ones resurfacing. In the Crystal Tower, obviously, you'll have the Cloud of Darkness, and you'll have some other Final Fantasy III bosses. You'll have the Demon Wall. Omega Weapon is, of course, making an appearance, but these aren't ever, other than Cloud of Darkness, most of these characters aren't specific to one Final Fantasy. Skirmish is going to be looking at battles such as the Ruby Weapon battle, the Emerald Weapon battle, and it's going to try and look and find ways to make them battles that make sense in Final Fantasy XIV. Basically, we're going to look at a crystal. It's going to say, all right, what do you want to fight? This guy? Let's go. Think of it more closely resembling the Final Fantasy XIII-2 Colosseum. That's how I like to think about it. Next, you have higher tiers of the Crystal Tower and the Great Labyrinth. As stated earlier, more tiers of those will unlock until we come to the, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Climax of the story in terms of the Great Labyrinth and the Crystal Tower. Finally, we have more Primals and more Fates. Now, can't really complain. Now, the reason why I combine those is because Primals will not only be closed instances, but there will also be open instance Fates with endgame what are they called, primals. So expect to, if you're not successful in the fights with them inside, perhaps you'll have better luck with gaining gear, lower tier obviously gear with them afterwards. And also more fates, well, with Odin getting progressively stronger every time he's defeated, and Behemoth probably just being a boss as it is, probably being really hard. But you can expect more of these large scale endgame fates to really take over. And that's all that I have for you today, but I hope it's enough to convince you that Final Fantasy XIV is looking to be here for the long haul. They are not just trying to look pretty early, they are trying to stay awesome all the way through. If you found this video useful, please like, favorite, subscribe, and share, especially if you have a friend who wonders what the end game is like. Is it gonna have no end game like Final Fantasy XIV 1.0 did? Is it gonna have like barely any end game like Star Wars The Old Republic? No, they have a lot planned. Don't worry. Also, I want to thank my subscribers for your donations. My new microphone should be in tomorrow, so no more of this stupid thing turning off on me in the middle of a video, which it hasn't done yet. If you would like to donate to help increase the quality and make sure that I can keep putting out these videos, please look in the donations tab below. I take, whatever donations I can get, and I put them towards whatever's in the Amazon wish list in the bottom. Currently aiming to get a capture card for my PlayStation 3, so I can also record the Final Fantasy XIV PlayStation 3 footage, if possible. Also, if you're not interested in that, I also do a charity stream with Athene Live. He's a very popular League of Legends and World of Warcraft player, and he does charity for the Save the Children Foundation. We are trying to raise $480,000 by October of 2013, so that way we can get it matched 7 times by the USAID. So every subscription counts, guys. If you would like to donate to me and have me do the subscriptions for you, I also take donations for that, or go right over to the Athene live stream where he will soon be taking direct donations for the charity. If not, you can donate directly to him and he will pay for his 2,300 accounts that he currently has on Twitch. If you're not interested in any of that, you can always donate your ideas to my Facebook at www.facebook.com/MrHappy1227, where it's just a community of people who are very kind to each other. We can debate about in-game topics very, very maturely, and it's a very, very positive place for you to be, especially if you're new to the game and you're trying to figure some things out. Nobody here is gonna rag on you for not knowing something, so don't worry about it. Alright, so anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Turn in next time. Take care.